Bonjour tout le monde, j'espère que vous allez bien. Today, we're going to talk about how to make questions in French. Vous êtes prêts? Allons-y. So let's break questions down. The first type of the questions that we're going to talk about is yes or no questions. In other words, the questions whose answers are either yes or no. In English, we have questions like, are you okay? Is he fine? Or is your shirt blue? These types of questions are called yes or no questions. So the first part of this video is going to be yes or no questions. Let's go. One of the most important concepts when talking about questions in French is register. What I mean by that is, do you want to ask a question in a formal way, informal way, friendly way, etc. Now let's start with the easy one, which is the informal way. You know how to make a simple sentence in French. Change the intonation, you make it a question. That's the informal way. For example, tu vas bien? Tu vas bien? Are you okay? I didn't do anything. All I did was change my intonation to make it into an informal question in French. Pretty simple, right? Another example. Il est serveur? Il est serveur? Is he a waiter? And so on. Let's move on to a little bit of a harder type of a question, shall we? Now let's step up and make the questions a little bit more formal. So we learn how to make the informal question super easy. Now if you want to add up a little bit to the formality and the register, you got to add this expression, this phrase, est-ce que. And then what comes after est-ce que is again the same structure that we used for the previous part. Par exemple, est-ce que tu vas bien? Est-ce que tu vas bien is the same as tu vas bien, but with a pinch of formality, if you will. Est-ce qu'il est serveur? Est-ce qu'il est serveur? Notice how il and que just blend in together because of the contraction, but it only happens with il, don't worry. And elle, yeah, was about to miss it. Yes, est-ce qu'elle est serveuse? Is she a waitress? Is she a waitress? Est-ce qu'elle est serveuse? Now, add est-ce que or put est-ce que before any other normal sentence and then you make it a yes or no question in French. Par exemple, je suis content, which means I'm happy. Est-ce que je suis content? Am I happy? But with a tiny bit of more formality in the question. So, ready for the next step? Allons-y. So, what is the next level of formality? We do inversions in French too, and that is the next level of formality in French. In other words, in yes or no questions in French. So, for example, take vous savez ce concept, which is do you know this concept? And then invert the verb and the subject and see what you get. Savez-vous ce concept? Savez-vous ce concept? Which means same thing, do you know this concept? But this one is much more formal. So there is inversion in the French questions. Now, it gets a little bit trickier with other types of verbs. For example, les verbes pronominaux, or the verbs that have reflexive pronouns. For them, things change a little bit. For example, Arnaud se douche, which means Arnaud takes a shower. Now, if you want to make this a yes or no question with the highest type of formality, meaning inversion, you got to say Arnaud se douche-t-il? Arnaud se douche-t-il? Now you might be wondering, where did the te come from? Well, the thing is, se douche-t-il, se douche is the verb part, and then il is our pronoun. But you can't say se douche-il, se douche-il. It doesn't sound fine. So what we do is put a T in between as a buffer to make pronunciation smoother and easier. So Arnaud se douche-t-il? Does Arnaud take a shower? So this stays the same with a lot of other verbs, such as il y a. Il y a une table ici. Il y a une table ici? Now you could say est-ce qu'il y a une table ici, which was the previous way of making questions. You could also say y a-t-il une table ici? Y a-t-il, which is the inverted type, and the one that where we use the inversion, the highest formal type of yes or no questions. It might be confusing, but you'll get the hang of it, especially when you practice. So that's about it. Let me give you some more examples with the inversion type of the questions. So let's keep it simple. Il est serveur. Let's go back to our original example. Est-il serveur? Est-il serveur? It makes it, be careful, it makes it so formal. So in day-to-day speech, nobody says est-il serveur, because, you know, they might be not interested in looking like a poet or something. So be careful, this is so formal. Est-il serveur? Well, the first way was much easier. Il est serveur. The second way was est-ce qu'il est serveur? And the last one, est-il serveur? Now these are the three different ways that you could make yes or no questions in French. Now I have a challenge for you. I'm going to leave 3 sentences right here. You're going to go ahead and make them questions in all the 3 ways that I just taught you. Go ahead, give it a try, and give me the answers in the comment sections below. I'll see you soon with the second part of the WH questions. It's what we call in English. In French is a different thing, but we're going to dive into that and learn more about how to make questions in French. We're not done yet. We're going to have another part and a second episode of this. So stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe. Et à plus. Mon Dieu. Au revoir.